Into picks and bans for the first game of this series. Origin on the blue side, Schalke on the red. Of course, both teams have one game on either side in our superb best-of-2 format. Now, we can see Origin already realizing, as you said, that Schalke have gone towards those hyper carriers. We'll get rid of the Twitch, would perhaps get rid of the Cogmore here as well. And it's a Zac ban from Schalke.
Yeah, on the blue side here, you're probably, on the red side, you're going to see probably the Zac and Elise getting taken away. For Origin here, they can afford to make those kind of decisions of, right, what do we really not want to play against here? And the Twitch was one answer. Yep. I'm curious to see if the Cogmore is going to be another one. They might leave it open and think, right, we can deal with this. But the Twitch, the submarine threat, too much for them. Let's take it off the cards right now.
Makes a lot of sense. There's the Thresh ban, seen that in every single game thus far. Just too strong as a support. And Origin will be looking towards this third ban. You've got Elise still there if you want to get rid of it. The Kennen as well, something we've seen be incredibly effective. That will get taken away. Schalke have a couple of options here. Can go for the Rakan to get that away from Quickseth. Can also go towards, oh well, can't go towards anything else because they have banned the Rakan.
Yeah, I think here, Origin banning away the Kennen is saying Dandan doesn't want to play this today. He wants to play Camille. Camille, he's played a lot. He played it during the CSQ a couple of times to great effect as well. And with the recent buffs, as light as they are, it still makes her a lot more impactful. The kind of dueling potential can be fantastic. So maybe this is them saying, right, we're not too worried about the Kennen. Let's look towards other picks for now, and then we can pick up that Camille later on into the ban phase.
Jax is there as well. Still for them. They will go for the Elise first pick. No surprises there, as it's the strongest jungler left on the cards. Still Lee Sin up as well for Memento if you want to
check the medic dictionary there to determine if that's still a word.
Strongalist is definitely a word.
It is now.
It's going to be the Caitlyn pick for upset. So still a hyper carry, still scales well into the late game, and I expect Schalke on this first/second rotation before that second ban phase to get themselves a jungler as well.
Yeah, probably try and look towards that one just to round things out and stop themselves getting towards the point where they're in the second ban phase and will then have two bans taken away from them. That basically eliminates all the top tier jungle picks you can think of. Maybe leaves like a Lee Sin open or something along those lines, but in this case, Rek'Sai, Schalke, as said, taking some inspiration from the previous game, seeing how well that Rek'Sai can do.
I'm interested to see the Rek'Sai over the Kha'Zix, because Memento's known as a very good Kha'Zix player. Still was open, so going for the Rek'Sai shows that they just prioritize that pick at the moment. Origin trying to continue the purple theme in their lineup with a Varus pick, and then of course can go towards the Lulu, towards the Malzahar, anything else that's purple. Morgana. I can't think of any other purple things off the top of my head.
Something will spring up at some point.
Zac with the skin, what's it called?
Bubblegum, oh, special weapon.
Special weapon Zac, also known as Purple Chroma. For Zac. Origin probably look towards their support here to make sure they don't get that banned away from them next page, but they are instead going to get Scarlet his Kassadin. Another purple champion for them.
Perfect. They are continuing that theme. But we've seen Kassadin banned away twice so far today, so I guess no real big surprise that if it's open, you are going to see someone eventually end up picking it up here. And if Kadril goes to something like another hyper carry again, it's towards like the late game as we saw. This is basically saying, right, we really like that comp that Wind and Rain ran. Let's take it for ourselves and run it into this game. They're going for it.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Kadril is a very strong carry in the mid lane, mechanically very sound. Actually got to rank 14 on the Korean ladder as well over the last few months. Is someone a name that Jaws always likes to remind me of. Follow to improve. Learn to improve? Something along those lines. Well, I'm sure he'll shout it at me in a little bit. But yeah, he's just concentrating on trying to improve over in Korea, and that's what we've seen from Fnatic and from UOL in the LCS as well. They are the top two teams, arguably, in the LCS, and they were the ones who went for that Korean bootcamp instead of the Brazilian vacation that G2 seemed to experience. Shen, the ban from Schalke for Euro getting taken away by Origin as well. Top lane focus from both these teams. Yep. Still a few different options available. Supports on the cards, and of course those top laners being left to the second rotation of picks.
The biggest worry for me here is that you ban away a lot of Dandan's pull. Like, we know that he's a very proficient top laner and he can play a number of things going through. Again, the Camille is the thing I'm thinking he's going to try and go towards here when they get through into the next ban phase. So far, it's been very standard. You know, we've seen AD carries, jungles, and mids taken away. They didn't want to get any of those roles target banned as we go through. The Braum coming through a little bit more of a surprise here. I imagine for Schalke, they wanted to look towards Dandan and go, right, how do we shut down this 4-1 combo that they always run?
I think the power of Braum as well is into Caitlyn Cassio is very strong, because you put up the Unbreakable Shield and it just stops a lot of their damage and their siege potential. It was Focus on Improve, by the way, was Kadril's name. I've just remembered it. And there is the Tahm Kench ban away from Origin. There's still Jax here for OG, and that's Dandan's signature champion. If perhaps the Camille being slightly stronger at the moment, it's going to be a Renekton, so Dandan can choose how he wants to deal with that alligator up towards the top side, and Schalke still have their support left to pick.
And one thing we discussed a lot last week was how do you shut down this really, really strong split pusher that Dandan keeps taking away? You take a champion who can beat him in lane, you take a jungler who can gank onto that and just make it work out for you. And Renekton, bit of a lane bully. a good pick, I think, to go into the series with here, just to try and make sure that Dan gets off to a bad start, shall we say.
It's not going to be Aatrox.
No.
It's going to be Jace instead. Still a strong split pusher.
Yeah.
Works very well when you want to get that 1-3-1 going, and at the moment Origin have that in, you've got Scarlet split pushing, you've got Dan split pushing, and then you've got Siege and anti-Siege potential in the Varus. You just need a strong support to go alongside it, something with a bit of protection here, something with a little bit of tankiness as well. It's a difficult one because you could go Blitzcrank, but that's a little bit out of left field.
I think that adds too much into this comp for them, I think.
Karma
Finally, we're going to see a Karma get picked into 7-12. We've been speaking about it a lot this week, and you were saying it's very situational. It requires you getting towards the later game. But with the changes, her shields are even stronger at 2 items. What do you do to deal with that? You have someone who can pick them away from the team, stop those shields getting on them. It's a Blitzcrank.
Yeah, Blitzcrank for Schalke 04, so it is picked, although not on the side that perhaps we predicted it to be. They've got strong lineup on that side, a lot of pick potential, a lot of scaling into the later game, and Smithy J there in the top side trying to get them through that early game with the help of Memento. Arjun, on the other hand, 1-3-1 seems to be the name of the game for them, and a bit of protection from Quickseth on that Karma.
I like it. I think the comp coming through from Origin is very much so about this pick siege-based composition. So they have a good pick. Essentially, if a Cocoon lands, you've got a Cassin who can dive in. You've got the ultimate from the Varus, the poke that comes from the Varus, as well as the Jace. And you've got the speed to get on top of them as well. We did see a very, very slight nerf coming through to Karma's Mantrid E. So it went from 50% movement speed boost for the team around you to 30% instead. So it's not as strong as it would be, but those stronger shields will probably make up for this as well. And if you see these shield-based items that we've been speaking about, the massive changes that come through to Athens is essentially 5 AP for every 25% base mana regen that you have. You stack these up with these new items that Karma synergizes so well with. She has so much more AP later on in the game, and her shields are so much stronger for it.
Yeah,
we've discussed this a few times.
We've had a few discussions about this, and I actually think Karma's weaker than she used to be. I don't think that she scales, she scales okay. I don't think that she works as well with Redemption or with Locket as she used to.
All right, pretend you're a Color for 5 seconds. Why is she weaker later on?
Because the reason that she was so good was you could build so much protection. So you could build Locket, Redemption, and Athenes, right? You don't want to build Athenes from support because it's too expensive an item and you don't really want the AP. Redemption triples heal buffs, so Ardent Sensor works well. So the 2-item spike, I agree with you, is relatively good. But you keep talking about it as if Athenes is a must-build item on
I think it
Karma.
is now.
I don't think you want to get it. I think it's too expensive for what it gives you. Whereas as a support, you end the game with, say, 10, 15,000 gold. You're really looking at 2 main items, a Sightstone, probably upgraded to Eye of the Watchers. So you want Frost Queen's Claim, Frostfang into Eye of the Watchers. And that's your gold. Yeah. That's all of it. So I can see mid lane. Mid lane, I think she probably is stronger at that 2-3 item spike. I don't think you can play a support and have the same amount of heal and shield that you used to, especially with the nerf to the shield, especially with the nerf to Inspire. But I can understand where you're coming from. I don't want to disagree with you, Des. I just think you're wrong.
Well, you said this earlier, and my 25-minute prophecy was pretty spot on.
Yeah, that does. Results-based analysis. Results-based analysis. We'll see how it works out in this game.
I think the 2 items are going to be Redemption and Athens that she'll go for early on, alongside the Sightstone like you alluded to. I think that combo on itself gives you 250% base mana regen. You get 80 AP off Athens. It makes your shields 40 stronger. Even with the nerfs, they're still 40 stronger than they were before. Yeah,
I can understand that argument, especially since Varus isn't like attack speed based. I think I would still go Ardent Sensor, but I can understand your argument.
Do you think we'll talk about this later on in the game?
We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. We are going to get onto the Summoner Swift for the final series of the day. Game 1 between Origin and Schalke 04. Both these teams looking to solidify themselves in those playoff spots, and I am too excited for the start of a game. Slow it down a little bit mid lane. Doran's Ring into Dark Seal. Not too surprising, although sometimes you do see the Corrupting Potion on both the Cassiopeia and the Cassidin. Cass and Cass. In that mid lane. It sounds like an 80s sitcom. Hello, we're Cass and Cass, and we both like to walk through the void and stun you where you stand. I bet they'd have tons of dating problems. Because Cassidin, the guy, would be like, every time I get close to a girl, I somehow walk through the void.
2 seconds. All production is watching you now, expecting an amazing joke. This best end really well.
It's not going to go well. And then, so Cassidin, continually accidentally void walks away from his dates. And when they get too close, force pulse accidentally to their face. And then Cassiopeia, firstly, Snake, not the best at dating. And secondly, whenever she looks you in the eye...
Have you ever dated a snake?
My ex-girlfriends, a few of them.
Excellent.
And whenever you try and get close to her, you just get turned into solid rock.
She's a very different... There you go, that's production. Well done, Matt. I'll give you that one, I enjoyed that. It was a solid analogy.
I don't know what you mean.
And you basically burnt a minute and a half of pre-game talk time. So now we can talk about what's going on in terms of item builds and all the rest of it that's kicking off. Both bot laners opting to go for the door and shield, favouring off that sustain that's going to come through. This is where you kind of start to favour burst-style bot laners. So this is where Blitzcrank really starts to shine. If you go a door and shield bot laner, the best way to deal with them is to deal with burst. And if you can get a grab down, if you can get the ignite, the rocket punch, the trap from the Caitlyn with the headshots, that's how you deal with it. So really, I'm expecting more to come out of Schalke in this bot lane. I'm expecting them to have the advantage over Darkside and Quickset, who of course have now returned after their brief hiatus on Wind and Rain last week.
Their sojourn in the hurricane that is Wind and Rain. They did go 0-2, didn't have the best of performances. Darkside is an AD carry we've really only seen shine on the Lucian pick, one of his one tricks, although he has many tricks and many arrows in his quiver. And one of those arrows seems to be Varus in this bottom lane, going to try and trade into Upset and Norscarin, who have gone for that ignite as well on the Blitzcrank. As you say, looking for those burst trades. Zani has been a standout performer for Wind and Rain throughout the Challenger Series qualifiers and now for Origin, and will be looking for some early ganks. So already picked up both of his buffs and is pathing towards that mid lane as Cadril has been very aggressive here in that middle lane. Has popped a pot and can pass down towards the bottom side. There is a gank down here as Momento's going to get the knock up into the hook. Pulls, quick sets back. There's the ignite. He tries to flash away into the shield. Can he get away? Not quite. Memento with Burst Blood.
Well, you were saying we expect to see him on something like a Kha'Zix here, but the Rek'Sai working out just well. No wards being placed down there. Probably should have known, 3 minutes 10, something had to happen for AJ.
That's what you want to do.
Smart. But that was the kind of return gank on the other side of the map. Of course, let's not forget in the last series, it was the Elise who got the gank in first. This time around, it was the Rek'Sai. So Schalke off to a great start thus far. Kadril's
just force pushed in this mid lane with those Twin Fangs. Actually has a slight CS advantage because of it. About 6 ups. That's a whole wave that he's denied away from Scarlet. And now he goes back, gets himself a refillable potion. Let's have another look at this bot lane gank.
Yeah, it's just kind of orchestrated to a T. No wards in the Tribush means that it's an easy gank for the Rek'Sai. Memento did have to, of course, force the flash to manage to get that final kill. But this is what I mean. This burst potential you have with the Blitzcrank is fantastic. The ignite, just make sure they secure the kill. And that'll be a very, very happy start for this bot lane and, of course, for Memento.
Pretty happy with a first blood like that. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, pretty even between these two laners. Scarlet goes back himself, gets himself that Sapphire Crystal. Assume he'll go up towards that Rod of Ages, is what we tend to see out of Kassadin's at the moment. And if you can get to the 20, 25 minute mark without having got pushed too far behind, you can be in a very good spot. Scarlet has shown us how strong he is on Kassadin, especially on those scaling mid lane champions like the Vladimir, the Swain as well. Reminds me a lot of Betsy from Rockout. A very strong player, but a slightly eclectic champion pool.
Yeah, one thing Scarlet did here as well was save the TP. So this is to me, when I get the gold for the tier, or like you say for the Catalyst of Aeons, go back, grab that, TP back into lane and lose nothing from it. Because if he keeps on having to walk back into lane like this, it's going to start costing him. Already it's costing him 10 CS, so wants to make sure he keeps himself relevant, but then again it is a Kassadin. You get towards the late game and he is an absolute monster regardless of how he's been doing for the rest of the game.
And one thing that has happened because of that early gank from Zani up towards the top side is Dandan's been able to extend himself a little bit of a CS lead, about 13 or so ahead in that top lane, because Smitty J has to play so much safer, knowing that he doesn't have flash, knowing that if the Elise came for another gank, he would just get taken out pretty quickly. And Zani is looking for those early ganks. He's got mobility boots for himself now. Will be continually trying to find his way into these tricky situations, weave his web around the river and work his way around behind the enemy laners.
I feel like Zani here really wants to try and make an impact in the top lane. We've seen so many times where a Jace gets ahead thanks to a couple of ganks, and suddenly, whether it's a Fiora, whether it's Renekton, they just cannot do a thing about it. But here he comes down with a lane gank. Look behind them as well, because Memento is on his approach too.
This could be a great counter gank, because Memento is going to come in and actually will get spotted out by those minions. Flash away from Dandan. Zani's here in time. There's the cocoon. There's the stun onto Memento. Burst. Another kill over to Dandan. TP coming in from Scarlet. Force Pulse used. Smitty J trying to get away underneath the tower. Will they dive? Scarlet does not have Rift Walk yet. How far away is he from level 6? If we look at him with the Observer, I'm sure we can find out. Just about to hit it, so there it is. Can Rift Walk in, but already Smitty J is backed away. Has teleport if he wants to join that top lane once again, but might just accept that OG are going to get some damage down on towards his tower.
And it's like I said a second ago, if you get a Jace ahead, even slightly, in this case he's got a blue buff as well, which makes life even harder for Smitty J. It's so easy to put pressure onto the laner, and you can see already, Ninja's happy coming out for Smitty J. He does not want to have to suffer as hard as maybe he will be at the minute with Dandan being able to lay down all this additional pressure. He hasn't even been back. He's got a kill, he's got 55 CS. This is Wonderland for him right now and for the rest of Origin.
But there's also Wonderland for Kadril in that mid lane. He's got a 15 CS lead because he didn't roam. Scarlet didn't actually get anything out of that teleport. And we are going to get straight back on into the action. Sorry about the pause. It's one of the problems with having players at their own homes or at their gaming houses. Makes it a bit more difficult. It looks like Dandan's going towards the Blade of the Ruin King in the top lane. This is something we've seen out of a couple of Jaces. It's not the most common build, but it does give you lifesteal. It gives you a bit of peel as well if you need it, and can help you trade into these tanks.
And the added burst too definitely helps. This isn't the guy who wants to poke. This is the guy who wants to get up in your grill and go for a duel with you and really start beating you down with that Blade of the Ruin King. Memento getting focused quite hard here as well. It's like a lot of pressure coming in from Dandan and Zani.
Pretty good dodging from Memento as well. Got away from the Shock Blast and away from the Cocoon. Darkseid getting pushed back a little bit in this bottom lane. Actually went for the Berserker Greaves first instead of just going towards a BF Sword, which is what we see from Upset. Kadril's going to land the Petrifying Gaze in the mid lane, going to keep trading in the Cocoon, and that doesn't connect as Kadril dodges out. Scarlet's going to get forced back by the Twin Fangs. Kadril doesn't even burn a summoner there, as Zani came in for the gank.
Yeah, well played just to walk it off, and it's what we saw last time around. It's that, you know, a sign of confidence, I suppose, in the mid lane is when they're happy to still trade damage. But mid lane, though, bot lane.
Quickset's going to take quite a bit of damage. The exhaust did come down onto Upset. Norscair and try to tank it up for him. There's the heal as well from Upset. Shulkin no fear on the back foot as Darkseid and Quickset look for a kill. No level 6 yet, no ultimates for them. The knock up. Darkseid will just continue to trade onto Norscair. No one else on their way down there yet.
Dandan's still lurking. Memento still wanting to poke his nose into Origin's business here and just make sure he knows what's going on, where the movements are of Zani, where he's trying to make an impact next, because if it's towards the top lane once more, Dandan might find himself accelerating even further ahead. But look at Smitty J, he's so deep here. This is the jungler and top lane synergy that sometimes you will see from these teams. He's able to invade collectively, and this shuts Dandan away from any XP in the lane. He can't really go into his own jungle and farm because you've got Memento invading there, and you've got the Renekton just 2 seconds away.
Memento smites away the blue buff as well. Just an extra icing on the cake for him. Actually, Memento and Dandan might get met in this top lane here as Dandan goes low. Memento's so low as well. Will be able to get himself away. The repel up as Scarlet joins the fray. Jumps in, Memento dead. Smitty J gets the kill to Meek. And that's another kill for him. Scarlet's going to have to try and run away, but you cannot get away from Renekton. It's a double for Smitty J.
Well, this is now dreamland for Smitty J. It's all turned on its head very, very quickly. Dandan even going towards the Cole now as well, probably accepting that, right, that's it, he's got the one buff, he's got himself 2 kills, he's going to be a bit of a nightmare to deal with in lane. But that was just great coordination from Shulker there. Memento saying, right, if I want to get my top laner back into this game, we've got to start denying Dandan. We've got to force things in the way that we want to. And for Zani, he had to respond himself. He had to come from bot side where there's a Drake available, where he's got a bot lane that he wants to try and get out of this lane with Caitlyn. He just had to roam up himself, try and get involved, got himself killed for it. Just not the ideal outcome for Origin there. That's more Schalke showing the aggression I feel they need to really take this advantage over Origin.
Zani going for the mobility boots first as well means that he could get there, but he doesn't have as much as he would do if he'd gone for jungling items. It's going to be a bit of a trade as Dandan goes on to Smitty J at the top side. There are Ninja Tabis on that with Necton, but he hasn't gone back and spent any of the gold that he just earned, so he will get forced away by this Jace. Shock Blast connects as well. Eventually Smitty J will just be able to get back towards the fountain. Isn't going to lose too much up towards that top side.
It's all been another bit of a replay here. You can see with the aggression coming in from both the top lane and from the blue side jungle, it just means that Dandan, no matter where he walks, he is going to be faced with opposition. And this looks so good, I think, at first. Coming through for Origin, they had 3 members. It was a 3v2, essentially. And yes, they trade kills back and forth, but you're against a Renekton. In the early game, no one matches up to a Renekton. And even with the blink away, the Kassadin still falls down and gives that 2-0-1 over to Smitty J with the double buff.
Both Zani and Scarlet were really low, actually, on mana as they joined that fight, so they couldn't actually use any skills to try and take down the Renekton. And Smitty J, of course, working off Fury and off cooldowns meant that he was just able to continue outputting the damage, making it a lot harder for Origin to react properly. There's still a CS advantage for Kadril in the mid lane, as we expect there to be. He's gone double scaling items, Catalyst Veons, and that tier. We'll expect him to get Rod of Ages next and complete that scaling duo that he needs. Scarlet still no Rod of Ages for him. He's slightly delayed in this top lane, this mid lane build path. In the top lane, Dan and Smitty J just continuing to trade as you would expect. Smitty J has a slight CS advantage. Here's Zani up towards the top side. The Cocoon doesn't land because Smitty J's actually knocked away. Kadril gets Scarlet in the mid lane just in a pure 1v1. Looks like he flashed in and Scarlet just has nowhere to go and Smitty J escapes.
This is a point of concern here, is that there's a 25 CS lead coming through for Kadril right now, and both of them are playing these kind of late game scaling I don't want to say so much assassins, but the mages, I guess, in a sense. You've got an assassin and a mage on one side. They're both going to be very, very scary once we start getting towards those late game points. Question is, who gets towards that late game stage first? And the answer is, whoever starts getting kills in lane. And right now, 103 CS, a 30 CS advantage. Going to be able to get these items filling up soon as well. Doesn't have a Rod of Ages still here casted in, but the Cadril on the Cassiopeia has got the tier stack in. He's getting his way towards that Rod of Ages. It's looking pretty good for Schalke right now.
Zani seems to be ganking everywhere, but not really doing much effective. And because Cadril was able to stay in lane when Scarlet teleported up to top and Scarlet didn't get anything out of that TP, it's allowed Cadril just to extend this lead. Last week, Xscandal was talking about Cadril's journey to Korea and how Cadril found that in Korea, it's a lot more about being able to mechanically outplay your mid lane opponent than it is about being able to roam. And we see that paying off for him here. He's able just to mechanically beat Scarlet at this point, because he hasn't roamed, because he's looked just to try and trade in for this tower. And he actually might even get first tower in mid, which is something that's almost unprecedented a lot of the time. Yeah,
pretty much solo as well. There hasn't been much pressure coming in from Memento. It's just that Scarlet is taking such a beating against him in the mid lane, but that's what they want. And this mid lane tower will go down now. Cadril pretty much taking it exclusively on his own.
His first tower blood going down mid for Schalke 04 will give them a 3,000 gold lead as well, only 12 minutes in. They are looking absolutely devastating, and look at that, 2,000 gold sitting in Cadril's back pocket. He's going to go and make it rain back at the fountain, probably going to pick himself up that Rod of Ages. Memento's getting traded in as he burrows his way away, and this is the safety of Rek'Sai. You can be aggressive and just escape pretty easily.
Now Rod of Ages finished.
Another tower.
Yep, and the tiers stacking up ahead of time as well, so Cadril right now, he's in Dreamland. He's having a pretty good time. And it's the kind of lane winning mentality we spoke about in the last series, saying if Wind & Rain pick lane winners, they might find themselves with the ability to get to late game in the first place. But right now, Schalke are saying, right, we've still got, the Cassiopeia that needs the late game, the Caitlyn that needs the late game. We're still going to crush. Look at Dandan dropping very dangerously low.
Here's Smitty J's low as well, up towards the top side. Both of them are incredibly low as we watch Memento. Smitty J might actually go down here as Zani's on top of him.
The Q? No,
gets the Q. It got cancelled because he went into the bush, but eventually do get the kill. There was a little bit of a bait push coming out from Schalke 04 as well around the red buff, but because Zani's up top, there's no one to come and try and get it away from them. Might look down towards the bottom side. Cadril just continuing to push in. Actually has level 11 now as well, so it's got that level 2 ultimate. And this is the Schalke 04 we expected to see. This is the Schalke 04 that started to have glimpses of hope against Team RB last week. This is the Schalke 04 that seemed to have improved, firstly, their draft, which over time has been quite weak, especially playoffs last year. They lost a lot of the time because of that draft. And secondly, their ability just to allow a lane to carry. Like Smitty J here, fell behind, was like, okay, I'll wait, and then was able to carry when Memento came in for the ganks. Cadril didn't roam, said, okay, I'll stay mid, and now he's looking to carry, and he doesn't even need to get all the kills. He can just continue to pressure and be this threatening force for Origin.
Cadril here doesn't even take the short route to the blue, but just walks straight around it as well. Can they transfer this one away? No, they cannot. Cadril take that. I thought he was going to go for a grab there as well, potentially.
Flash grab. Come on, we've seen Ignar do it in Orskeren.
You can do it too.
Prove that you're better than the Misfits. Rift Herald's on the map here as well. I expect to see, now that Schalke have brought their AD carry and support up towards the top side, some priority on that. Cadril, of course, on the Cassiopeia, so quick at taking objectives. There's an Ocean Drake for them, there's a Rift Herald. And Smitty J's actually going to pop the dominance as he looks to get onto Dan. Dan gets the Ruthless Predator stun down, still has a slice if he wants to chase in. Golden Reek will give him a lot as well. Dan jumps up, but Smitty J is just absolutely devastating. Zani's going to join the fray here, but look at how low Dan is. Even if the Cocoon hits, I'm not sure they could chase in. And Zani, those mobility boots are getting him around the map, but it's not getting anything out of it. Schalke 04 looking for topside. Quickset is going to get flash hooked. And that is going to be a very dead Karma. Cadril with the chase, ace in the hole, Twin Fangs. Noxious Blast there as well, not quite able to get the final ticks of damage down onto Darkside.
Well, Smitty J is basically turning the tables on Dan from what we saw last week. What he's doing is drawing jungle pressure down to the bot side. It's forcing Zani to have to go and help his top lane. Otherwise, they just shed more and more towers, and it gives them a greater global advantage over to Schalke. So with that in mind, even Scarlet came down for that last gank, and they still didn't manage to catch Smitty out. In fact, it was Dan who burnt his flash, and Smitty managed to hold on to his. It just gives a very, very easy top lane plus for Schalke. So they're definitely playing around Smitty's strengths at this point as well. Very happy with how the game's going for them. And I've got to admit, for Origin, it's a definite kind of step away from what we used to seeing from them. They're usually the ones who are making this split push pressure. And we said last week, what happens if Dan Dan comes up against a split pusher who has more threat and pressure than he does? It's exactly this. The whole thing falls apart, and Origin kind of start flailing around looking for a way back into the game.
Exactly, and last week, a lot of Origin's pressure came from Illusionist on the Rakan. He played incredibly well. He was able to get multiple charms off and really help them stay in the game. Here, don't see that coming out from Akama. Akama can't make those big plays, and Quickseth is a very good Thresh player. Was banned out, of course, but you need to show that you can be a playmaking support on other tools as well, because Zani's tried to be the playmaker here for Origin, and it has not worked out for them at all. Smitty J and Cadril really the carries for Schalke 04, and I like this because it shows that they're not only going to draft around Upset, they're going to allow the rest of their team to be carries, to make the plays, doesn't put all the weight on Upset's shoulders. He can farm up on this Caitlyn and eventually get to the late game carry stage, yeah, that's fine. But if you have a Cassiopeia and a Renekton who are able to go ahead early game, you can really dominate your opponents.
Like you say, it's all about kind of taking the pressure, not so much the pressure away from Upset, but the reliance on Upset to do well for them to win this one out. And I think, you know, here they've got 3 threats. They've got Smitty, who's drawing 2 or 3 members away to him all the time. You've got Cadril, who we've seen last game what a late game Cassiopeia can do, and you've got Upset. So many tools they can make use of, and if one starts to fall away, it's not the end of the world for them. They still have another 2 that they can rely on. On the other side, it's a tough one, because Scarlet has to go into the mix of things to try and get some damage down. Cadril, that's exactly where he wants you to be. He wants you to be in his face. He wants to ground you so you can't jump away again, and the rest of the team will just burst you down. Their biggest kind of reliance here for Origin, I think, is that they get towards the late game and Smitty falls off. That's one of the carries eliminated. They still have to deal with Cadril and Upset, but I think that's a little bit of a more softer scenario for them to be able to walk into.
Well, 17 minutes in, there is a 6,000 gold lead for Schalke 04. Rift Tower's still on the cards if they want it. Looks like Memento's parting up towards his top side now. Cadril in the mid lane, just dealing with 3 people by himself, as you do. And look at that gold advantage in the mid lane. 2,000 extra gold just sitting on towards Cadril. It's an absolute colossal disadvantage for Scarlet, and as much as you can scale up on Kassadin, he has now got the Sheen. He's got 5 stacks on the Rod of Ages. It's a slow burn, yes. Maybe if we get later on into the game, he can do something about this Cassiopeia, but it's going to take a long, long time, especially with Schalke getting the Rift Herald. Opens up another tower for them, should be an easy enough take. Not really sure Origin wants to contest.
And look on the bot side here again. Zani is having to head towards his red jungle because of the pressure that Smitty J is popping down. If that wasn't there, if this pressure wasn't being exerted by Smitty, then maybe he can run up towards the Rift Herald, where they've just got a ward down knowing exactly what's going on and they could try and contest it. But no, he's got to worry about his top laner here, who is struggling so hard right now, and it's very different for Dan Dan. Every single game in the CSQ, he looked dominant. They obviously won every single game. It looked great for them. A grab, though.
Scarlet's going to jump away. The silence didn't quite come out in time. The Void, the Rift Walk had already been channeled. There's a Rift Herald up towards the top side if they want to use it as well. Currently sitting in Memento's trinket slot. Might use it with this next wave, would make the most sense. You want to use it when there are minions there because it reduces the tower's resistances and also makes it a little bit easier for you to take. There we go. Herald up towards the top side. Upset will clear out the wave, and here comes the charge. Smash straight to the face. Half the health gone down. OG might be able to clear it out relatively quickly here, actually, but in the mid lane, actually, there's a push from Cadril as well onto Darkside. He's going to chunk him out, and that's a kill. It's a great thing that I was able to watch that on my, just the side, the health bar. It was cool. Cadril's actually going to get called out here. He had burned his flash, and North Garen looking for a little bit more. Memento gets the knock-up. Scarlet dodges the hook with a flash. Don't actually think it was going to connect. Here comes Dan Dan from the side, jumping all the way onto North Garen.
TP.
Knock-up as well. TP used. Dan Dan. Smitty J. Blade of the Ruin King. Escape potential.
That's why he's taking it, to get away from the Renekton. Never too fun to deal with, but at least he has that tool available to him. Like I say, the flash coming out from Scarlet probably wasn't necessary. It did look like the hook was going to go wide, but this is just more of the aggression. You know, Cadril just diving on the tower quite happily, and now it could actually be Dan Dan in trouble.
Smitty J's willing just to jump in and jump out. That top lane tower didn't actually fall, so Schalke 04 still sitting only on 4 towers at 20 minutes. 7 kills to 4 up as well, and still have that 6,000 gold lead. Leandri's Torment finish on towards Cadril alongside the Rod of Ages stacking up. Got 2 items on Upset as well as he has the Infinity Edge rapid fire cannon combination, and across the board, Origin just look to be half an item to a full item behind.
If Schalke can maintain this vision line they've got, which at the minute is very, very deep, it's generally between the first and second line towers, just always making sure they can see when Origin are maybe overextending their boundaries, getting away with more than Schalke want them to, then they have the opportunity here to just maintain vision completely around Baron and probably sneak it away at some point as well. They do have the damage. You've got a Snake in the mid lane. You've got that Cassiopeia, which is excellent at taking away these objectives. No Mountain Drake to speed that process up, but
He does land. There's Miasma as well. Quickstep on his way, but look at the Petrifying Gaze damage. Scarlet might want to jump in here already. Zani's dead just to the tick of the poison. Jump onto Scarlet by Memento. Dan off towards the bottom side, has to flash across the wall. Origin just getting chased out. Ruthless Predator onto Quickstep. That's a ruthless kill for Smitty J. He's going to keep chasing onto Scarlet, make him burn some more mana to Rift Walk away if he needs it. Schalke Northbeer do have the flank. Norscarum was looking for it. He sped himself up, but won't quite chase any further. And the Baron is on the cards here for Schalke Northbeer. They do it very quickly with the Caitlyn and the Cassio alongside that Rek'Sai. They're going to start it up. Not sure that Origin can actually contest this. They do have a TP on Scarlet if they want to go in for it, but Baron's already down to 4,000 HP. Schalke should have this one pretty comfortably in the bag.
They will back away, and that extends their gold lead now to just over 8,000 as well. Schalke playing this one, I think how we expected RB versus Wind and Rain to go in a lot of ways. To just be a very, very clinical, clear-cut game, not really giving much over to Origin to let them back into this one. And it's a step away from the Origin that we've been used to seeing, I think. But they can't execute this 4-1 correctly because Smitty shutting him down. And, well, there we go. Pop. Yeah,
Darkside used the Chain of Corruption, caught out Upset, who did have Flash, I believe. Wasn't able to get away. Just a Chain CC, as you would expect. That is the power of the pick composition we talked about from Origin. They do have the Cocoons, they've got the Chain of Corruption, they've got a lot of pick if they can land it. And Origin actually might look for their first tower of the game. Smitty J on the flank, though, will stop them for the time being. Kadril's here as well. No flash for him, but he can just chase in. There's Miasma stun onto Zani. Zani's going to try and dodge his way away. Doesn't have the flash on the Elise and has no way of getting away from the Twin Fangs. Kadril's still chasing. Noxious Blast gives him the movement speed. Look at that. 3 shots straight to the face of Quickstep. He says, you take down my AD carry, I'll take your life. And Origin eventually get their first tower of the game.
Dan finally starting to feel like a split pusher again here, I imagine, actually getting his first objective of the game, but it doesn't really feel like enough, to be honest. Yes, you managed to trade that out, but you lost 2 elsewhere on the map. Potentially, just potentially, so they're not actually going for it, but they could be. Schalke here could have thought, well, there's a Varus defending, there's a Kassadin defending, we can take this. Let's try and force in the mid lane and try pull the trigger, get that inhibitor down, but maybe for them it's more of a concern. The Drake's up in 10 seconds, and they want as many objectives as they can get.
I agree. I feel this Baron power play has been a little bit weak thus far from Schalke. They didn't get any towers in the mid lane. They're going to get some damage onto Darkside, sure. Actually, Memento's going to go for the chase with the Void Rush, but Darkside can just knock himself across this wall. They'll get an Ocean Drake as well. Yeah, they equalize the Drake score, but I feel Schalke could have done a little bit more than this. They were 7,000 gold ahead after they took the Baron. Now they're, about 8,000 gold ahead. It's about 1,000 gold swing, which isn't massive at all for a Baron power play this early in the game.
We've touched on the split push pressure a lot that Smitty J is already applying down here in the bot lane. And finally, he'll probably find himself getting this tower in return. No one's there because they're too busy trying to defend the bot lane. And Dan, he's trying to take himself another tower up here in the top lane.
So, I mean, getting this tower does help them extend that ever so slightly, so that's a good job by them. They do still have Baron buff on Smitty J and Memento for a little while more, so they can look for that. I think actually Kadril has it as well in the mid lane. So actually only Upstate lost it because he's the only guy who's died, so that makes a bit more sense. Baron buff will be expiring in about a third of its time, and they will look perhaps to break through this inhibitor line. Kadril there, Dan does get the tower up towards the top side, but meanwhile in the mid lane, they will be able to get that inhibitor tower, and this is what we wanted to see. 9,000 gold ahead. They hook on the Elise Spiderling, not exactly what you want, but there's the Chain of Corruption. Norscarum gets the knock up. Here comes Smitty J into the midst of them, and even through the exhaust, Upset can get the kill. Double Petrifying Gaze. Darkside's falling. Quickset having to run away. Schalke Northbeer living up to their name. They don't care what you do. Triple kill for Upset, and Schalke are absolutely devastating. They're looking just to end the game. 25 minutes in. This would be just domination from Schalke Northbeer. Origin had no answers. They had no improvement, no motivation, no work, and no team as Schalke go 1-0 up in this series. Another hook onto Dan. Quickset trying to do what he can, but he just can't do much. That will be the Nexus falling, and that will be Schalke going 1-0 up over Origin.